I turned onto Maplewood Drive just after noon, the same way I had 100 times before, and still my stomach tightened as the house came into view. 2 stories of pale brick, shutters the color of tea leaves, the same wind chime crooning on the porch. Nothing had changed, and yet everything in me braced as if for impact. The sky hung low and bright. Heat pressed against the windshield. I parked behind Marissa's white SUV and sat for a second, engine ticking. She never came home on Sundays unless something was happening. That was my first clue. When I stepped out, the air smelled of cut grass and lemon detergent, the scent my mother used for everything, even the porch railings. It carried memory like static. I could almost hear her voice calling us in for dinner. The clink of plates, the old dog barking at the mailman. I closed the car door carefully, as though sound itself might set something off. Inside, the house was too clean. No TV humming, no kettle on. Just that lemon smell and the faint metallic tap of my father's watch against the dining room table. He looked up when I walked in. "Anna," he said, like an announcement, not a greeting. Mom was beside him, hands folded over a stack of papers. Marissa leaned against the counter, scrolling her phone, the soft gold of her bracelet catching the light. She didn't look up. I smiled, out of habit. "Did I miss lunch?" "Not yet," Mom said quickly. "Sit down, honey. We wanted to talk before we eat." The phrase "we wanted to talk" carried a chill I knew too well. I set my bag on the floor and took the chair opposite them. The papers lay between us, crisp, thick, official. My father's pen rested neatly on top. He cleared his throat. "You know the market's been strong. Houses on this street are going in days. Your mother and I think it's time." "Time for what?" "To sell," Marissa said, finally looking up. "It's perfect timing." The word hit me with physical force. "Sell the house?" Dad nodded, patient, reasonable. "We've had the appraisal done. There's already interest. It makes sense financially." I felt the air change, tighten. "You already had it appraised?" "Yes," Mom said, her tone quick, defensive. "We wanted to be sure before bringing it up." I stared at the papers. Legal language blurred and steadied again. Offer, closing, signatures. I rubbed my thumb against my palm, grounding myself. "My name's on the deed." "Of course it is," Dad said. "That's why we need you to sign." A beat of silence stretched, thin as wire. "You've already decided." Marissa shifted, crossing her arms. "Anna, it's just a house. You don't even live here." I laughed one sharp breath. "That's not the point." Mom reached across the table, palm open. "Sweetheart, don't take it that way. We thought you'd be relieved. You're busy with work. You hardly have time to deal with maintenance and taxes." "It's not about maintenance," I said quietly. "It's about asking." No one spoke. The wall clock clicked. In that silence I saw it clearly. Years of small, polite betrayals dressed as logic. Birthdays spent fixing other people's problems. Vacations cut short because Marissa needed a loan, because Dad threw out his back because someone always required something. I'd been the hinge they all swung on. Now they were selling the one place that still tied me here, and they'd done it as if I were furniture. I stared at the stack of papers until the letters stopped meaning anything. The silence grew roots, wrapping around the room, pulling everything inward. My father broke it first. "We just need your signature, Anna. The buyer's solid. It'll help us all." "You'll get your share, of course." Of course, as if fairness were the same as consideration. I ran my tongue across my teeth, an old nervous habit. "When were you planning to tell me?" Mom exhaled through her nose. "Don't make this dramatic. We didn't want to burden you before we knew it was real." "Burden me," I said slowly, "with decisions about my own house." "It's not like that," she said. "We raised you here. It's always been our home. Yours too, yes, but not enough to ask," I finished. Marissa laughed quietly. "God, you're acting like they sold you." Something in my chest clicked shut. That old rhythm again, Marissa sniping, me absorbing. I turned toward her. "You think this is funny?" "I think it's practical," she said. "They're getting older. The taxes are insane. What's the big deal? The big deal was every unspoken moment that had led to this one. Every time I'd been the reasonable one, the calm one, the adult in the room. I'd balanced their books in college when Dad forgot the mortgage. I'd helped Marissa out of debt 3 times. I'd handled hospital paperwork when Mom's arthritis got bad. And now they couldn't even grant me the courtesy of inclusion. Dad pushed the pen forward. Anna, we just need you to sign so we can move forward. We'll be in a better neighborhood, closer to the doctor. It's time. I looked at the pen. Sleek black, corporate, the same kind I used to sign client contracts. My hand itched to pick it up just to end the scene. Then I saw the reflection in the polished table, my face pale, drawn, jaw locked, and something inside me refused. No, I said. It wasn't loud, but it cut through everything. Mom blinked. What? I'm not signing. Marissa rolled her eyes. Oh, for God's sake. No, I repeated. Not today. Not like this. My father's brows knit together. Anna, be reasonable. I've been reasonable my entire life, I said. And the words came faster now, heat beneath them. Every time something needed fixing, who did you call? When Marissa crashed her car, who paid? When the roof leaked, who found the contractor? You don't get to make decisions about this house and tell me to be reasonable. Mom's mouth opened, then closed again. She looked small suddenly, almost frightened. Dad's voice dropped an octave, the way it did when he wanted control. We're not your enemies. Then stop treating me like a resource. Marissa's tone turned brittle. Jesus, you're impossible. You have everything going for you, your fancy job, your city apartment, and you still want to be the victim. It was like watching a play I already knew by heart. The lines, the roles, the choreography of guilt. I could have argued. I could have explained that independence doesn't erase obligation, that being competent doesn't mean being invulnerable, but I was so tired. So profoundly done explaining myself. I'm leaving, I said. I pushed back the chair, the scrape loud against the floor. Mom's voice cracked, soft now. Anna, please, don't leave like this. I paused in the doorway. How else should I leave? In the car, the air felt different, thin, sharp, real. I sat there, keys in hand, and for the first time in years, I didn't rush to smooth things over. The house behind me was a shape in the rearview mirror, its windows glinting like judgment. Somewhere inside, they were probably already rewriting the story. Anna overreacted. Anna made things difficult again. But this time I didn't care. The next morning, I woke to a string of missed calls. Mom, Dad, then Marissa, then Mom again. I didn't answer any of them. The sunlight coming through the blinds had that pale metallic tint of early spring. Beautiful, but cold. My coffee tasted like iron. Every sound in the apartment felt amplified. The spoon clinking against the mug, the faint hum of my refrigerator, the neighbor's footsteps above me. When I finally unlocked my phone, the messages stacked like an avalanche. We didn't mean to upset you, sweetheart. Please call when you're calm. You're being childish, Anna. You're really hurting Mom with this. It's just a house. We need to close by Friday. By Friday. They'd already set a date. I sat on the edge of my bed, heart thudding in that slow, deliberate way that happens after anger, when the adrenaline fades and you're left with the hollow echo of it. It wasn't just a house. It was where I'd learned to climb trees, where Dad taught me to ride a bike, where Mom cried in the kitchen after Grandma died, where Marissa and I built blanket forts and dreamed about leaving someday. And now they were selling it without a word, as if my childhood was a leftover they could throw in the deal. I pulled up the real estate listing. 4-bedroom colonial on a quiet street, updated kitchen, motivated sellers. The photos felt obscene. My old room, emptied. My mother's garden, cropped into a marketing angle. The realtor had written, perfect for a growing family. I laughed, a sharp, humorless sound. The irony wasn't lost on me. All my life, I'd been the one holding everything together for a family that never once asked what I wanted. I'd been the safety net, the fixer, the emotional buffer. And they were selling it all off like a used car. By the third day, Mom showed up at my apartment. I knew she would. She always did when she needed to look reasonable. She stood in the doorway holding a paper bag, my favorite croissants from that bakery near her church. A peace offering disguised as breakfast. "Can I come in?" she asked softly. I stepped aside. The air between us was thick with things unsaid. She placed the bag on the counter. "You've lost weight," she murmured, scanning the apartment like she was assessing the damage. "Are you eating?" "Mom," I said quietly, "why did you do it?" She sighed, already rehearsed. "We thought you'd understand. You've always been the practical one. I'm not your practicality," I said. "I'm your daughter." Her eyes flickered, but she didn't respond. She began to tidy up, a nervous habit, folding my dish towel, straightening a book on the counter. "You're making this harder than it has to be," she said finally. "We need the money." "Your father's health." "Then tell me that," I interrupted. "Tell me you're scared. Tell me you need help. Don't pretend it's a family decision when you made it without me." Her lips tightened. "You wouldn't have said yes. That's not the point." "It's always the point," she said. "You think too much. You make everything about fairness." For a long time, we just stood there. The light caught the silver in her hair, and I realized she looked older than I remembered, tired in a way I hadn't seen before. Something in me softened, briefly. Then I remembered the listing photos, the text about closing by Friday. "You can sell it," I said finally, "but I won't sign anything. Not until I decide what it means to me." She blinked, taken aback by the calm in my voice. "You're being cruel." I smiled, small and sad. "No, Mom, I'm finally being honest." That night, I called someone I hadn't spoken to in years. Ellen, my old mentor from the marketing firm where I'd started my career. She was one of the few people who ever saw through my composure. Her voice was the same, warm, direct. "Anna," she said, "you sound exhausted." "I am." She waited, the way she always did until I kept talking. "They're selling the house." Without asking, "I feel erased." Ellen was quiet for a moment. "Then, maybe that's what freedom sounds like at first." I didn't understand until later what she meant. The next few days blurred into a strange kind of silence. I went to work. I answered emails. I smiled at the right moments in meetings. But beneath every motion, something inside me was shifting. Small, seismic cracks forming under the weight of years I'd spent trying to keep everything smooth. I caught myself staring at the spreadsheet on my screen, the numbers dissolving into white noise. Someone had brought birthday cupcakes into the office. The smell of vanilla frosting made me nauseous. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was the realization that my entire life had been a negotiation I never agreed to. That night, I opened the box in my closet, the one labeled Old Things. Inside, a photo of me and Marissa at the lake. A birthday card from Dad with a check for $50 and no words. A faded report card with responsible, reliable, too quiet. Scrawled in the teacher's handwriting. The medal from when I won the science fair. I remembered how Marissa got flowers that same day for her dance recital. Mom said, "Anna wouldn't want to make a fuss." I used to believe that love meant being dependable. Now I realized it meant being invisible. I didn't decide everything at once. It came in small, almost imperceptible choices. The next morning, I called the realtor listed on the house. When she answered, her tone was brisk, professional. "Hi, I'm calling about the property on Brookfield Avenue," I said. "I'm one of the owners." "Oh, Anna, right?" Her surprise was audible. "Your parents said you'd already agreed." "I didn't," I interrupted. My voice was steady. "Please put a hold on the closing until I review the paperwork." She hesitated. "I'll need confirmation from." "You'll have it," I said, and hung up before she could protest. Then I called a lawyer. And then, for the first time in months, I slept through the night. A week later, Marissa texted me. "You're being dramatic again. Mom's really upset. Dad's blood pressure is up." Can you just sign the papers and stop making this about you? I stared at the message until the words blurred. Then I put my phone face down and went for a walk. The air smelled of rain and cut grass. Somewhere, a car alarm went off, shrill and distant. My shoes soaked through as I stepped into a puddle, but I didn't turn back. The city lights reflected off the water in fractured gold. For years, I'd run every errand, made every phone call, planned every surprise party, written every apology text for things I hadn't done. And the one time I said no, I became selfish. That realization didn't make me angry. It made me free. When Mom called again, I answered. Her voice was small this time. Anna, honey, we didn't mean to hurt you. You're always the strong one, we just thought. I let her trail off. The hum of the refrigerator filled the pause. You thought I wouldn't mind, I said softly. She exhaled. You've always been the one we could count on. That's not the compliment you think it is. Another silence. Then she said, almost pleadingly, we're family. I know, I said. And I'm finally learning what that means. That evening I drove to Brookfield Avenue. The for sale sign tilted slightly in the wind. Through the living room window, I could see the ghost of our old furniture imprinted on the carpet, the rectangle where the couch once sat, the sun-faded outline of the bookshelf. I walked through the side gate to the backyard. The lilac bushes Mom planted were still there, wild and untrimmed. The air smelled like soil and memory. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was trespassing. I felt like I was saying goodbye. I pulled out my phone, took one photo. Not for nostalgia, but proof. This was the last time I'd let them decide what was mine. That night, I listed my own apartment for sale. Not out of spite, out of clarity. I wanted a new space, one untouched by old expectations. When the real estate agent asked where I planned to move, I smiled. I don't know yet, I said. But somewhere quiet. With light. It was a gray Saturday when I finally went back. Mom had asked for a family meeting. Her voice over the phone had that brittle sweetness she used whenever she wanted to disguise control as concern. Just to talk things through, she'd said. We all want to be on the same page. I'd almost laughed. The family had been reading different books for years. I arrived early, out of habit, the same way I always did. The same way I always used to make sure the table was set, the water pitcher full, the mood steady before everyone else arrived. But this time I didn't touch a thing. The house smelled of lemon cleaner and roast chicken. The air was too warm. The kind of heat that made your clothes cling. My hands felt dry. I kept them folded in my lap as I sat in the living room waiting. The mantel was crowded with photographs. Marissa in her white coat, Mom and Dad at the anniversary cruise. Me, one framed picture from a college graduation 15 years ago. In the photo I wasn't smiling. I remembered why. They gathered slowly. Dad, already defensive. Mom rehearsed concern. Marissa, performing composure, the diamond on her finger catching the light like a threat. I watched them take their seats. For once I didn't fill the silence. Mom was the first to speak. Anna, we're sorry things got messy. We never meant for you to feel left out. Left out? I repeated. The word felt small in my mouth. You sold a house that legally had my name on it? Dad sighed, exasperated. We just assumed you'd want what's best for the family. What's best for the family, I said, has always meant what's easiest for everyone except me. The words landed softly. No raised voice, no drama. But the air thickened. Marissa rolled her eyes. You're making this bigger than it is. Maybe it's always been this big, I said quietly. You just never noticed. Dad's fingers tapped the table. Fine, he said. What do you want, Anna? Money? An apology? The condescension in his tone might once have made me flinch. But not now. I leaned back in my chair and said, neither. That startled them. I don't want anything, I continued. Not the house, not your permission, not your explanations. I'm done managing everyone's mistakes. I just wanted you to hear it directly from me before I move on. Mom's eyes flickered. Move on? Where are you going? Somewhere else, I said. Somewhere I don't have to keep proving I belong. Her voice cracked. We're your family. I know, I said. That's why it hurts. For a moment, no one spoke. The only sound was the faint buzz of the refrigerator and the rain starting to press against the windows. Then Marissa said, You're overreacting. We all depend on each other. That's what families do. I met her gaze. You depend. I enable. There's a difference. She blinked, thrown off by the calm in my voice. You think walking away makes you strong? She said, You'll regret it. People don't survive without family. I already did, I said. For years, you just didn't notice. Her mouth opened, then closed again. For the first time, she had no performance ready. I stood. My chair scraped the floor lightly, the only sharp sound in the room. I reached into my bag and placed an envelope on the table. That's the legal agreement, I said. The sales paused until all signatures are cleared. You'll find my conditions inside. Dad looked bewildered. Conditions? I keep my share, I said. You can do whatever you want with the rest. Mom frowned. That's not fair. It's the first fair thing I've ever asked for. I turned toward the door. Anna, please, she said. Can't we talk about this? We just did. Outside, the rain had stopped. The air smelled of wet earth and asphalt. For the first time in years, I felt the full weight of my body. Grounded, solid, my own. As I reached my car, I saw my reflection in the window. Hair damp, eyes steady. I almost didn't recognize the woman staring back. When I got inside, I didn't start the engine right away. I just sat there, hands on the steering wheel, listening to the distant murmur of thunder. My phone buzzed. A message from Mom. You don't have to do this, we love you. I typed back. I know. I'm just choosing me now. Then I put the phone face down and drove. Not fast, not away. Just forward. 3 months later, I signed the deed to my own place. A small house just outside Philadelphia, where the city hum faded into trees. 2 bedrooms, creaky floors, a yard that needed work. When I turned the key for the first time, I felt an almost physical release in my chest, the sense that no one could rearrange this space without my permission. The walls were bare and the air smelled faintly of new paint and possibility. For weeks I lived among boxes, eating takeout on the floor, working late into the night at the dining table. I answered emails, coded, built presentations, and started a consulting business I'd been quietly planning for years. Clients came, then referrals, then a rhythm. Every morning, I made coffee and opened the curtains. Sunlight fell across the living room, the light catching on the air like dust turning gold. Silence wasn't empty anymore. It was safety. It was mine. Sometimes I thought about that last family meeting, not with anger, just a kind of detached curiosity. It was like remembering a story I'd already finished reading. They reached out occasionally, a text, a photo, a polite update about Marissa's baby shower. I replied with short, kind messages, nothing more. No bitterness, no longing. Just boundaries made of air and self-respect. One evening, a letter arrived, handwritten, my mother's looping script. She apologized. Said she understood now that love shouldn't come with conditions. It was the kind of letter I'd once dreamed of. I read it twice. Then I folded it neatly and placed it in a drawer, not to forget but to rest. By summer, the garden behind the house had started to bloom. I'd planted hydrangeas, though I knew almost nothing about gardening. They survived anyway. Sometimes my neighbor, a retired teacher named Evelyn, came over with tea. She never asked about my family. We talked about small things. The weather, recipes, books. Once she said, "You're very peaceful to be around." It made me laugh. "That's new," I said. She smiled. "Peace always is." On the last night of August, I drove out to the river. The air was warm, the kind that smelled faintly of rain, even when it didn't fall. I parked near the water and walked until I reached a quiet spot where the city lights shimmered across the surface. The sound of the current was low and steady, not loud enough to drown thought, just enough to give it shape. I sat down on the dock, shoes off, toes grazing the water. The reflection of the sky looked like glass stretched to infinity. I thought about how long I'd spent waiting for permission to rest, to stop apologizing, to exist without the weight of expectation. And then I realized no one ever grants you that permission, you take it quietly, completely. My phone buzzed again. A message from Marissa. Heard you bought a house. Mom says it's beautiful, congrats. I stared at the screen for a long moment, then typed a simple reply. Thanks. I'm happy. 3 words. Enough. I set the phone down beside me and watched the ripples spreading across the river, each one smaller, calmer, until the surface turned still again. The moon came out, pale and whole. The wind moved through the trees behind me, soft as breath. I closed my eyes and let the quiet settle in my chest, a steady rhythm, my own pulse echoing back from the water. For years I'd been the one who fixed things, who filled the silence, who made everyone else comfortable. Now finally, I could sit in the silence and let it hold me instead. I don't need them to see who I became, I whispered into the dark. I just need to see it myself. And I did. The night hummed with quiet life, cicadas, wind, water. In the distance, the faint lights of the bridge shimmered. I slipped my shoes back on, stood and walked toward my car. The reflection of the moon followed me in the rippling black of the river, like a second self. Whole, unbroken, finally visible.